Join UF Hall of Famer and 14-year NFL vet Shane Matthews every weekday as he brings you all you need to know about your Florida Gators, including news, analysis, and opinions with some of the biggest names in sports. Find us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Or watch us live at 8 a.m. on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter.
Good morning. It's a live edition. PodUp with Matthews in the morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Gator softball tonight, supposedly at 9:30. There ain't no way in hell that game starts at 9:30. It's the last game of the night. It'll be a late night for sure if you want to watch Gator softball. Congratulations to the Auburn Tigers. They win their first ever men's golf championship. They beat the semis. Good thing. And baseball cranks up tomorrow against the Cornhuskers of Nebraska. Let's go to the Titan MR hotline courtesy of Comfort Temp, and we're going to be joined by our college football analyst and Heisman Trophy voter, Brent Beaird. Good morning, Brent. How you doing?
Well, I'm doing fine. I have not one but two preseason magazines in my possession.
Happy man.
That's right. Lindy's and Athlon are both out. We'll go over some of the particulars. They're very similar, but there's still something about that excitement of having the magazines on the stands, and this year is no exception.
That's true. Before we jump into it, got a bunch of texts. I get texts on this text line all the time. I'm not going to call out who it is or whatever, but you can complain about my show or other shows or better. You don't have to watch my show. I'm gonna have my people on. It's different than a once a week talk show or podcast. It's totally different than doing a daily show. So not talking about you, Brent. They're just talking about some other people that I have on my show. And like I said, they ain't got to watch. We're gonna do it my way. All right. So Brent, let's start with your Athlons and Lindy's magazines. Anything jump out to you?
I think what we'll see here, we've seen along the way, basically your top five in some order: Georgia, Ohio State, Texas, Oregon, and Ole Miss. Ole Miss is a big favorite for everyone this year. Michigan and Bama are in the top 10. Notre Dame, Missouri is in the top 10. FSU, that is with the Lindy's. And you've basically got kind of the same thing, or a little bit of a shell game, shall we say, moving the parts around with Athlon. Also, Florida, I know folks would like to know, 37 in Lindy's and 35 in Athlon.
Yeah, hopefully that can move. I still, I don't care about the rankings right now, but why anybody would think Auburn is better than the Florida Gators blows my mind. I just don't think Auburn was very good last year, and I don't think they made maybe they have. I just don't know. We'll see. And like you said, everybody's on Ole Miss, but
yes,
I don't see Ole Miss winning the SEC. Now they can get in the 12-team playoff for sure.
Yeah,
possibly.
Yeah, right. And that's
I forgot
where they are. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I forgot where they're difficult games. I don't know. I think Georgia goes to Oxford, if I'm not mistaken. I don't have it in front of me. I am not buying the FSU hype though. I don't get that. I think the ACC is going to come down between Clemson, NC State, and Louisville. Personally.
Yeah. Well, I'm with you. Louisville will be much improved. It's just a matter of time before they get that going. Frankly, Clemson, we think, will be good. I do think there's enough players on FSU's team to where they will be good. Now, will they be? And they very well may make the playoffs. But they've got some holes to fill. They brought some guys in. They brought three of them in from Alabama, like Malik Benson and Eric Little, who will help them. But it will be, yes, an interesting year in the ACC, particularly what's going to spice it up, as we know, is when FSU announces they're leaving before August.
Yeah. Nat says Auburn doesn't have a QB on Facebook Live. That's very true. I thought, remember
true.
last year, Brent, and I think it's still intact. Auburn's gone almost like 2 years without throwing for like 200 yards. Or what was that stat? Do you remember?
I'd have to look it up, but it was amazing. And they haven't had a receiver of any note in quite a while, too. And they've got some freshmen this year they really like, who may step up with that. But yes, Auburn has particularly struggled. You asked me about or you mentioned the schedule for Ole Miss at South Carolina, at LSU. Oklahoma is in Oxford. Georgia is also in Oxford, as you mentioned, and then they come to the Swamp. So, interesting schedule for Ole Miss this year, yes.
Yeah, Joe on YouTube, brought to you by Quality Plumbing. It went away. He must have deleted it, but he said college football will not be the college football that we know in 10 years. Well, Joe, it ain't the normal college football today. It's
That's right.
It's a freaking mess.
Yes.
All right, Brent, the SEC, I believe this afternoon will announce some kickoff times, correct?
Yeah, they will. As a matter of fact, this is going to be a national thing today, which is a little bit unusual, but that is interesting. But the SEC today, this afternoon around 1:30 or 2:30, is going to announce kickoffs and TV for the first 3 weeks of the college football season. So we will know a little bit more. We know some now, but we will know more at that time. I mean, we know some of the bigger games that will be going on and times and so forth, like LSU and Southern Cal, for instance. But the first 3 weeks will help. And look, people, I know it. They can't know everything, but it really does help to know. I'm sure it does for you too, Shane. When kickoff times are going to be early on in September.
Yeah, very true. I was just looking at the Athlon's ACC picks here that you sent. I forgot. Just for all our listeners, if you're like me and you forget the new world of football, don't forget
That's
that
right.
SMU,
yeah,
Stanford,
and Cal,
and Cal are now in the ACC.
That's correct. Yes.
Very bizarre. Very, very bizarre. All right, Brent, the SEC meetings are over in Destin. Anything so far come out of there that intrigued you?
Well, several things. The meetings are over today, but they've discussed a lot of things. One of the things, and this came up like last night. Now, again, we're not saying this is going to happen, particularly anytime soon, but when they get together, they start talking about revenue streams. Well, how do we get more money? And one of the ways that they can get more money is to go to 9 conference games. So we thought that was kind of dead and buried, at least temporarily. Well, that's come up again. Now, there's no date for this. They've got to vote on it, and it's not even official. But I just thought it was interesting that it came up again. But that came up more about money. Well, the other thing the other 2 things that have come up that have raised a lot of interest is what they call the availability reports. Well, who is going to be available? We know how the NFL does this, and they've done it really well for years. So there is talk again, and they've had some conversations about the availability reports. And look, this has a lot to do with trying to deal with gambling. And again, well, if this was in vogue, would coaches be honest about it? Now, those are things that we don't know, frankly. Now, the other thing, and I would be very interested in what you think about this, is we don't know what roster limits are going to be in this new world of college football. Well, part of this is the possibility of doing away with walk-ons, or at least severely limiting walk-ons. Now, as you can imagine, a lot of the coaches spoke up against this. because some of these coaches are walk-ons, or either they, like Steve Sarkisian, his son is a walk-on at Texas. Kirby Smart mentioned that Will Muschamp and Dabo Sweeney started their careers as walk-ons. Mm-hmm. So again, we're not overreacting with this. We're just saying this has come up, Shane, and it's something that they're discussing of what might this be in a few years.
Yeah, I brought that up yesterday on the program. Some of my best friends from college were walk-ons.
Sure.
And they are as important to a football program as anybody.
Agree.
I mentioned, I think it was Mike Morgan yesterday, maybe the NFL, maybe they need to go to the NFL model and reduce the scholarships down to like 60. And then the rest of your team, you can have as many walk-ons on as you want. But you got to have walk-ons. Have to. You have to. So we'll see. There's some lines out for week 1. Gators are still underdogs against Miami. I think that's going to change the closer it gets to game time, but maybe I'm wrong. Anything stand out to you there?
No, I would agree with you on that. Clemson at Georgia. Georgia's favored by 2 touchdowns. That might, as we get a little closer and folks start really kind of looking at this, if Georgia's improved, if Clemson's improved offensively, and if folks think too many guys went to the NFL for Georgia, that might come back just a little bit too. LSU is favored basically by a touchdown over Southern Cal. No surprise here. FSU favored by 3 touchdowns over Boston College. FSU starts the season in Ireland against Georgia Tech, and then they come home on Labor Day night and they play Boston College. I think we've mentioned this. FSU has not 1, not 2, but 3 bye weeks. Mm-hmm. That is very unusual, but that bye weeks are good, bye weeks are bad. It kind of depend on the players and the coaches. Notre Dame's at Texas A&M. A&M's a 1.5-point favorite. That game is on game day, which I thought was interesting too. But they could be very good, frankly, particularly if Connor Weigman comes back for A&M. But yes, always interested to see the lines, and it's kind of funny, Shane, how these lines change so much, and there's really nothing that's happened to cause them to change.
Right. Yeah, you mentioned that Notre Dame A&M game. That is an intriguing game because Riley Leonard is penciled in as the starter for Notre Dame, who was Mike Elko's quarterback at Duke last year. So
true.
That'll be kind of interesting. Brent, there's still rumors out there that the Utah Utes, they're supposed to be going to the Big 12, but eventually could end up in the ACC. What's going on there?
Well, that was a real rumor throughout the week, and the rumor was so widespread that Utah actually came out and made a statement about it from the school itself, saying that we're proud to be entering into the membership of the Big 12 in the coming months and excited about our new friends. A report over the weekend that suggested otherwise is completely fabricated and irresponsible, Shane. How about that wording? But yes, that's been going around a little bit. Now, again, we know that logistics have gone out the window years ago for expansion. But again, Utah going to the ACC and how illogical that would be for their Olympic sports is kind of what Cal and Stanford are going through too at this point. But yes, that all that was going around, and this is a time of year where you get a lot of rumors about expansion.
Silverback Concrete builds firm foundations for generations. You stand on it, we stand by it. We got Brent Beaird, a college football analyst, on the Titan Tomorrow hotline, courtesy of Comfort Tent. We'll have Mike Ridaught talking a little high school sports, kind of wrapping it all up on our Baker Sporting Goods high school roundup after Brent. Brent, there's 12 schools. One of them is a group of 5 who had an outstanding year that they either went to a bowl game and they went to both the March Madness men's basketball and the baseball tournaments.
That's having a pretty good year, is it not? Alabama, Arizona, Clemson, Duke, James Madison.
They're the one group of five. They're the only.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Kentucky, North Carolina, NC State, Oregon, Tennessee, Texas, and Texas A&M. And look, James Madison, the only group of five school to make a bowl game March Madness in the NCAA baseball tournament. So congrats to them. I mean, look, even if you're in the group of five, you can still make an impressive season, and that's kind of the thing that we have seen with that too. So congrats to them. And by the way, and it may be over by now, but the Manning passing camp again came about, and you see that list, Shane? Just about every quarterback in the SEC ended up in the Manning passing camp. Look, I've always said this: wouldn't you like to be a fly on the wall when those guys are sitting around about 10 or 11 o'clock, eating a little ice cream and telling stories? That would be fascinating to me.
Yeah, the Mannings have done a great job with that over the years. They've added the college quarterbacks coming in and kind of being not coaches, but they just kind of roam around. They got a lot of high school coaches that come help with the camp, and
right.
Peyton and Eli are pretty funny dudes, but their older brother Cooper is the funniest of all of them.
Yeah,
and they all do the camp together. So,
mm-hmm.
It's a good experience for those guys to be around the Mannings for sure. Brent, let's start with the SEC reports. What's going on in Tuscaloosa?
Let me give you a couple of things that you may have never heard of before because they haven't happened. This is a mouthful here. There's a really good chance that this will be the first year that Alabama basketball will be ranked higher in the preseason than Alabama football. The last time that actually happened back in 2006 and 2007, and that year the football team was unranked and the basketball team was number 11. Now, the funny thing about that is in 2007 was when Nick Saban came, so that ended pretty quickly. But the reason for the excitement is Mark Sears and Juwan Stevenson both came back last night before the NBA deadline, and Alabama has, on paper, their best lineup in quite a while. And I'll also say there's a tremendous, I know you talked about this, but there's a tremendous amount of excitement, and I think it's merited for how well Florida is going to be doing with Todd Golden. I think that's a great lineup, and the guys they've got coming in and so forth, I think is very impressive. Another thing about Alabama is a tremendous year for them. They made the playoffs in football, Final Four in basketball. The women are in the College World Series, and they also had, I believe it was, one of their men on the tennis team won the national championship in the individual award. Now, this is something that's almost amusing here. I mean, good for this kid. You remember Tyler Buckner, Shane, that he was the Notre Dame transfer. He was an Alabama quarterback, played a little bit in the South Florida game, and then left the team to go join Notre Dame in lacrosse. He's a very good lacrosse player, better lacrosse player than he is a quarterback. And his Notre Dame team won the lacrosse national championship. So what about that? Going from being the quarterback at Alabama to being in Notre Dame in lacrosse and winning the national title.
Yeah, that's good stuff. Auburn, what's the latest on the running back that was shot?
Brian Batty is who you're talking about. Hugh Freeze said that he's better. Now, this comes from Matt Baker, who writes for in Tampa. And from Matt, there's a long road ahead. And what he's reporting is that according to court records, that when he was shot, that he has been paralyzed, and that unfortunately probably is going to be permanent. So, and the unfortunate thing is his brother actually was killed in this situation that happened a few days ago. So that's a horrible thing, and prayers for him and his family when that happened. So it's good that he's improving because he had a setback, but it's going to be a long way back for Brian Batty.
Yeah, the Gators, I think Scott Strickland spoke over in Destin regarding the Florida-Georgia series whenever they're redoing the stadium over in Jacksonville. He says it's probably going to go home and home. I don't know whether options there would be. It makes sense to me. Don't you think that's what's going to happen?
That probably. I mean, at this point, that's a logical thing to do. Now, that doesn't mean that Orlando or Tampa or even Atlanta won't bid on it or trying to get involved with it is a possibility. But yes, that would be basically the easiest thing to do. I agree with that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and if people missed it, Billy addressed the whole Jaden Rashada deal over there. He's very confident that what do you say? I don't have the quote in front of me. Do you have the quote in front of me? What he said?
He basically said that I do have confidence in our legal team. I am comfortable with my actions, and I'm thankful for the university's support.
Yeah, I don't, nothing's going to come of that, in my opinion.
Agreed.
The dogs. What's going on with Georgia?
This is one of those great preseason things that you see. The highest pass blocking grade among Power 4 teams who are returning offensive linemen. One of these guys, number one, is Jonah Monham of Southern Cal, and the next two are from Georgia, and that's Tate Ratledge and Dylan Fairchild. So Georgia loses guys, but as usual, Georgia has talent stacked up like cordwood, and they will be fine during that time. Georgia's got a lot of guys, like everybody else. A lot of the guys who weren't midterm enrollees are either coming in or they already have been in over the last few days. Georgia's the same with that. And, of course, Kirby Smart's been asked about Jaden Rashada, and basically he just said he's a good football player, and he's had a good body of work. He's got ability and kind of the typical coach speak that you would expect.
Yeah, for sure. Cameron on YouTube, brought to you by Quality Plumbing, says, how much longer will these non-revenue generating sports live? I think they will be gone in 2 years. I pray that is not the case. Yeah, Mike and I talked about it yesterday. Unfortunately, I think they will be gone here in the next 4 or 5 years. It's sad. I just don't know how they're going to survive.
I agree. I know that is very true. Now I've heard reports that that they're going to do everything they can to keep them around as long as they can. But look, and this is why that we said this a few minutes ago for the SEC looking at going from 8 to 9 conference games. They are continually looking at revenue. And look, one thing that's come up with this, I'm glad you mentioned this, is, and I won't get into it too deep, but one of the issues is do they put some kind of logos for advertising on the field or on the uniforms? Now, look, I don't think college football players will ever look like NASCAR drivers with all these logos on their uniforms. But Shane, you know how this thing works. At some point, that's another moneymaker, right? So how are schools going to deal with that? That's been talked about a lot this summer.
Yeah, it really has. And I go back to, I look at some of these ballparks in the SEC, Bluebell Ballpark there at A&M,
right.
the ice cream.
Sure.
Oklahoma softball stadium, which is phenomenal, brand new. They just moved into it this year. It's called Love's Field. Love's
Yep.
the gas station, convenience stores that you see
Right.
everywhere. You would think more colleges would have that type of stuff. I know the places in Arkansas do, but anyway, I'm getting on another tangent here. LSU, the Trojans from USC been trying to get out of this game with them.
They have been, and they've been trying to get out of the game for almost 2 years. And that has kind of come out. And at one point, Fox Sports got involved and tried to do it. Fox was not very happy with the idea of USC's first game in the Big Ten being televised by ABC and ESPN. I'm sure they weren't, but obviously the game's going on, and there'll be a lot of no comments, I would guess, wouldn't you, Shane? Because that will be a lot. There'll be a lot said about this as that game gets closer.
Tom tells me Love's is a truck stop. Well, it's also a convenience store gas station. But yeah. Anyway, their name is all over the Oklahoma softball stadium, I should say. What'd you think of Trev Alberts, who's now the AD at A&M? What'd you think about his comments?
Yeah, Trev said that we've just always had enough increasing revenue to overcome dumb expenses. I've said it 100 times. I'll say it again. We don't have a revenue problem. We have an expense problem. Well, that's logical, and I agree with that to an extent too, I guess. But still, everybody and their brothers just trying to keep up with inflation and where all this is going. Colleges are the same way. So when you look at all this now, what comes up is where do you get other revenue streams? I'm sure there's no doubt with this. And look, and this is something that we've discussed over here on local radio this week is, and this is part of the walk-on discussion. The fewer, if you're going to make football players employees, the fewer employees you have, the more money you can make. So that a little bit of that's going on too. So, but anyway, Trev Alberts, yes, who was in Nebraska, now at A&M with the quote of the week, frankly.
Yeah, I was thinking, I guess it was on yesterday's program, maybe Monday. With this whole new deal where the schools can pay the players, and they got to figure out what players are making how much money's going to what sports. These schools are gonna have to hire people that have done this, like salary cap type people, I believe.
Yeah. Right.
And they're gonna have to get rid of some people as well, because I know A&M got rid of a bunch of people in their athletic department when Trev Alberts was hired that a lot of A&M people weren't happy about. But it's so interesting to me that what's going on. And I said, Brent, that the word student athlete is no longer the correct term for these kids. The hell with the student part.
Yeah. Well, the student athlete is the NCAA has said for years really is no longer involved with this. And look, it's not going. All this stuff's not going to happen overnight, but it's stuff we're going to have to deal with. And a lot of people believe if we're going to save the sport, that it's going to be necessary. And again, and you played in the NFL, and there's a lot of talk about, well, the NFL makes mistakes, but they do a lot of things right and correctly. And will college football end up being NFL light following their process?
Well, they need to go to their model, because the thing about the NFL, you have rules. Okay, you have to follow those rules.
Right.
If there's tampering, you pay the penalty. There are no rules in college athletics right now. None.
Yeah. And
that's the problem. That is the problem. Brent, give us some nuggets before we get you out of here.
Yeah, be glad to. Ole Miss, Jacksonville All-Conference defensive lineman Chris Hardy is transferring to Ole Miss. They're going to have a really good defensive line. I mean, Walter Nolan transferred from A&M, for instance, and that's something to be able to look at with that too. Notre Dame's home kickoff schedule came out, and again, Shane, they've got a game, and yes, it's a Louisville game at 3:30 on September the 28th. We talked about Louisville earlier. That's another Peacock-only game. So that's another streaming game. They've done this now. I think this is like the third year in a row to where they've had a Peacock-only. Shane, imagine for Gator fans, if you had a game that the only way you could see it would be streaming it like on Peacock, I would be curious what the reaction of that would be.
Oh, I don't like it. I like to be able to turn my damn TV on and know exactly where to go.
Yep.
And not have to worry about passwords and how to
Mm-hmm.
figure this out. That's why I think is it the Sunday night, whatever the NFL game is. Oh, it's the Thursday night games now that are streaming on Prime or whatever.
Yes.
I don't think I've watched ever since they've done it. I have not watched one NFL because I'm not going to pay for Prime because I don't care about the NFL enough to pay for it. I don't even know how much it costs, but
I understand.
I guess I'm too old and don't really understand. I know my sports channels and just put the damn games on those. Yeah,
absolutely. By the way, Nico Lamaliva, the Tennessee quarterback, who is really good. I'm going to be curious what you think of him later. He actually has a brother by the name of Madden, Madden, just like the game, or John Madden, the coach, has committed to UCLA. He is 6'3", 195. He's from Long Beach. So that will be interesting to see how he does. And I can tell you the Tennessee folks are very excited about Nico.
Yeah. So yeah, he's going to be an upgrade with what they had last year.
Yeah, from Joe Milton, right, Shane?
Yeah, no doubt about it. Brent, great stuff as always. Have a great weekend. We'll talk to you next week.
And again, we're excited. The magazines are out. I didn't get arrested for stalking, Shane.
That's right. That's a good thing. That's Brent Beaird, our college football analyst and Heisman Trophy voter. Join us on the Titan More Hotline, courtesy of Comfort Temp. Take a quick time out. Come back. We'll talk a little high school sports. Put a wrap on this year. And Mike Ridaught from the PrepZone.com and Main Street Daily News will give us all the information. You're watching and listening to PodUp with Matthews in the Morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. We'll be right back. We want to take this moment to thank our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills. Our premium sponsors are Crime Prevention Security Systems, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility. Meldon Law, the only official injury and accident law attorneys of the Florida Gators. Peachland Dental, Gator Nation's first choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte. QC Kinetics, live pain-free with QC Kinetics. Campus USA, put some star power to work in your financial life with Campus USA Credit Union.
Comfort Temp, comfort is our business, peace of mind is our promise.
Dave & Buster's, eat, drink, play, watch. Our gridiron sponsors are UF Bookstores, Silverback Concrete, Ruse Ogre State Farm Insurance, F45, Quality Plumbing. Our touchdown sponsors are Adams Ribs, Gator Dominoes, Celebrate Primary Care, Gator Bait Media, Okido America, Style Cuts, Ironwood Golf Course, Big Mills Cheesesteak, McDonald's of Gainesville, 84 Lumber, Dowling Signs, Baker Sporting Goods. If you're interested in promoting your business on the show, call Freddie at 352-284-3733. If you like what we're doing here, make sure to follow us and support the businesses that support us.
Spurrier's Gridiron Grill's next private label whiskey release party is Friday, June 14th. Celebrate National Bourbon Day with us as we launch our new Buffalo Trace Single Barrel Select Bourbon. Mingle at Visor's Rooftop for the release of Spurrier's fourth private label. Enjoy a bourbon-inspired menu, specialty drinks, raffles, and each ticket includes your own Steve Spurrier autographed bottle of Spurrier's Buffalo Trace Bourbon to take home. Go to Spurriers.com to get your ticket today. Must be 21 or older.
Welcome back to the Crime Prevention Security System Studios, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Rose Ogre State Farm Office is a team of dedicated insurance professionals ready to help life go right with the right insurance options for you and your family. Visit ogreinsurance.com. Give them a call at 352-240-1779. I'm going to go back to the Titan No More hotline, courtesy of Comfort Temp, and it's our man, Mike Ridaught from the Main Street Daily News and the PrepZone.com does a tremendous job covering high school sports for us here on the Baker Sporting Goods High School Roundup. Good morning, Mike. How you doing, bud?
Doing very good, Shane. Season kind of winding down, actually officially over as far as high school sports go. You mentioned Main Street Daily News. We've got our all area stuff coming up next, but it was a pretty fun spring.
Yeah, it was. Let's start with softball first. Obviously, some teams in your area that you cover had some really good years and came close to winning state titles.
Yeah, we'll start with Gainesville High School. The last time that they were in the state tournament, they won a state title 8 years ago. But it was quite the turnaround for GHS because they went from a team that won 6 games all of last year to a team that won 6 games just in the postseason this year. Leanna Bordage, I mean, just a freshman pitcher. Obviously, she's the key. You know, it all starts in the circle, and she had a phenomenal year for Gainesville this year. Gainesville ends up making it to the state championship game. They lost in extras to Parish Community, which won the state title last year. 3-2, Gainesville loses a heartbreaker in 8 innings. But, you know, without Bordage, Gainesville, they don't get there. Just some of her numbers from this year, Shane, and what she was able to do in the circle, very dominant pitcher this year. She finished with an ERA of .57. Again, she's just a freshman. And in 136 innings pitched, she struck out 251. So she made such a huge difference for Gainesville. They've got some talent coming back. Braylon Cook, the catcher who led the team in home runs this year, is coming back, you know, for next year. I think they can make another run. But it was a very special year for GHS. They beat Archbishop McCarthy, which was the 2 seed. Gainesville was the 3 seed in the Final Four. Gainesville went on the road. They beat Middleburg twice. Middleburg was the number 1 seed in 5A Region 1. And not only did Gainesville beat them in the district championship game on the road, but they also beat them in the regional semifinals on the road. Shut them out both times. Had to go to Gulf Breeze and win. So they were kind of road warriors on the road there. So big year for Gainesville. Congratulations. In fact, we've got our high school show that we broadcast at Sonic Drive-In every week. Normally we do it on Wednesday, but tonight we moved it to Thursday because they had their banquet last night, but the GHS softball team will be on our show, and you can listen to it on MainStreetDailyNews.com. And probably the one of the more, I mean, obviously that was an exciting game, an extra inning game with GHS, Shane, but how about Trenton? They were down to their final out. They were trailing 4-0 going into the bottom of the 7th against Brantford. You got to feel bad for Brantford. Brantford's been to the Final Four. That's another team in our coverage area. Both of them are. Brantford has been to 3 out of the last 4 Final Fours. Last year, they lost to Liberty County. I think it was in the 5th inning. Liberty County hit a 3-run homer, ended up winning the game. But Brantford looked like they were on a mission. They beat Liberty County, mercy ruled them in the semifinals. And it looked like they were about to win a state championship up 4-0. But Trenton comes storming back. They tie the game in the bottom of the 7th, and then Trenton wins it on a walk-off. In fact, both of their wins in the Final Four, Shane, were walk-offs. They beat Holmes County 3-2 in the bottom of the 7th. They beat Brantford 6-5 in the bottom of the 8th to win the state championship. So congratulations to Clint Anderson, their head coach, and Trenton wins their 2nd state title since 2019. 2021, excuse me.
Back to GHS, obviously, as you mentioned, was it 8 years ago they won the state title? Coach Chronister had one of his daughters, Katie Chronister, as the pitcher who went to UF. Then he had the other girl that went to James Madison, the other pitcher. How does this girl, this freshman, compare to those other two that had such great success at GHS?
You know, we've talked about that this year. The fact that she's only a freshman, I know she has already garnered interest, from the Gators. Coach Walton was at one of her games. In fact, Maybe even Addison Allaire is on that radar too. She's a freshman for Trenton, and she had a phenomenal year. And Gainesville and Trenton played each other this year twice, and they each won on 2-0. I think was the final score on both of those matchups. But when you consider the fact that she's only a freshman, she's going to get better. I mentioned the 251 strikeouts. She only had 49 walks, 136 innings pitched. She certainly has the potential to, I don't know, Shane, though, both those pitchers that you just mentioned, Alyssa Humphrey is the other, those were really good pitchers. COVID kind of shut things down a little bit for Alyssa. I think that she could have won a state championship. I think she had a 0.00 ERA at the time that COVID hit. So who knows what her potential could have been like. But there's no question that Gainesville, would have. In fact, Chris Chronister told me, he said, listen, we won 6 games last year, but if we had a pitcher like that in the circle, we could have won 20 games last year. Pitching made the difference this year for Gainesville High School. And the fact that she's only a freshman and still has so much time left, she continues working on her craft. Who knows? She might be better than those other 2 you just mentioned.
Yeah. John's comment on Facebook Live brought to you by Metal Law says, Mike, we've been to Claremont 3 years in a row for the softball state championships. I've been to several parks around the state that are better. FHSAA needs to make it more of a championship feel.
I do like the, Dodgertown. I like when they had it down there. At least the stadium seating, for a championship game, I do kind of like that. It's like I said, it's like a stadium seating. It's like in a bowl arena type setting. It kind of dips down. The other fields aren't as great, maybe not Final Four worthy, but from a state championship game, standpoint, I do like the stadium seating. But what are the other options? Unless you were to play it at a college facility, they try to, Claremont is about as close as you can get. That's going to be fair for teams that are coming from the north and coming from the south. So, you obviously have to take that into consideration. But my biggest problem that I've had, and actually it was a little better this year, was the internet situation has been horrible. So, the last year we had the JUCO state tournament there, and we had internet issues. It seemed like every game. So, that's the biggest concern, I think, for me, from a media person. I don't, the media, I don't like how they treat the media. They put us underneath a tent. It's already 93, 94 degrees there, and we're outside the whole time. But that's neither here nor there. But anyway, congratulations to Trenton and GHS softball. They had a really good year this year.
Live a healthier lifestyle with our bold, flavorful smoothies and our amazing food. Tropical smoothie. When you eat better, you feel better. Got Mike right out here on the Titan Number Hotline, courtesy of Comfort Deal. Let's talk baseball. Buchholz locally, had a chance for their first ever state title. Just came up a little bit short.
Yeah, they did. It was really a fun ride for Buchholz. Last year they had a heartbreaking loss to Winter Springs in the region final. They looked like they were about to win that game. Winter Springs scored, in the top of the 7th to beat them. And just about everybody came back from that team. Just like Brantford softball, they returned 8 starters this year, Shane. So it's not a foregone conclusion that just because you were there and you got everybody coming back, that you're going to get there. I've talked to coaches before, like Willie Powers at PK Young. He won a state title, and he said his girls just kind of felt like they deserved to be back again, and they didn't get back there. So, first of all, just to get there is tough. And if you look at the games, their last 2 games in the regionals, they had to beat a good pace program. They beat them by one run in the regional semifinals, and then they beat Haggerty out of Oviedo 1-0 in the region final. So they had to have really good pitching and defense, timely hitting to get through those 2 games. And actually, I go back to the district tournament chain because, Buchholz was down 4 runs, I believe, in that one. And they ended up coming back. I think they scored 7 runs to win that district semifinal game. Then they go on and win the district championship game. And all of a sudden, they go from a potential 3 or 4 seed in their region to a number 1 seed. And as the number 1 seed, you get to host all the way through to the state semifinals. So who knows if Buchholz has to go to Pace, or if they have to go to Haggerty, or Childs, which actually, was a 2 seed and got beat in the second round by Haggerty, it could have been a different story. So the fact that they were able to get that number 1 seed and host was really big. But you're talking about, Noah Hayes, who's going to Central Florida, Anthony Wilkie, he's going to Clemson, Cooper Collins, who's going to Davidson, J.J. Gardner is a JU commit. They've got some Division I players on that team, really talented baseball team. So it was good to see them go down to Fort Myers for the first time in program history. And the first game of the tournament, we sat through a 5-hour and 15-minute weather delay. They were scheduled to play at 10 o'clock Thursday morning, May 16th, and it was the afternoon, 3 o'clock in the afternoon before the first pitch was thrown. But Buchholz did not play like they were just sitting through a weather delay. They came out, they scored 7 runs in the bottom of the first inning to beat Bloomingdale and advance to the state championship game. Now, they ran into a better team on championship day. Palm Beach Gardens Dwyer was the better team. They beat Buchholz 10-3. But, great season for Buchholz just to get to the state championship game. First time in program history they've done that.
Yeah, it was a great year for them for sure. Mike, before we get you out of here, spring football wrapped up I guess last week maybe, or 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
I mean, just the usual suspects are going to be the teams to watch come fall.
Yeah, I think so. I was talking to you a little bit about this, that because I was so busy down in Fort Myers and Claremont, and also we had the track and field finals the week before that. Quick shout out to a couple of our local teams. The Buchholz boys finished 5th in the state. The Eastside boys finished 6th in the state at the state track meet. A real quick note about that: Riley Smith of Buchholz got injured. He's going to be a Gator. If he doesn't get injured, they would have finished, maybe 3rd, 2nd. I mean, they had a chance to finish pretty high. And then Eastside's 4x100 team was really good. They were undefeated just prior to the district tournament. They had not dropped the baton. One of their kids dropped the baton, and they ended up, and he didn't go back and pick it up. If he picks it up, they finish 4th. They go to regional. But because they didn't get to compete in regionals in the 4x100. Therefore, they didn't compete in the state in the 4x100. So instead of finishing 6th, they could have easily finished 3rd in the state. So quick shout out to Buchholz and Eastside boys. Great job by them. But yes, as far as high school football, I think it will be the usual suspects. The big question about Buchholz, now Whittemore's returning, so that should be fun. But they've lost, some key guys on defense. Obviously, Miles Graham, Kendall Jackson, they're both in the SEC now. Their leading tacklers, Matthew Cade, Amari Shepard, Thomas Weinhardt, they're gone. But they do have Nick Clayton coming back. They've got Kill McGriff, who transferred from Newberry High School. He was their quarterback at Newberry, but he's going to play receiver for Buchholz. Buchholz's backup, Collins Dunsmore, goes to Newberry. I think Newberry, even though they're moving up in classification, because of their defense, and Dunmore's looked pretty good so far in the spring. They got a good running back in Caleb Woods. I think Newberry will be good, but you can't discount Hawthorne, and the job that Cornelius Ingram has done, getting to 3 straight state championships and winning a couple of state championships. So, Hawthorne will definitely, I think, have to be in the mix as well. Gainesville got a big win, although it was a spring game. I mean, they did win on the last play of the game to beat Eastside. Eastside's won a couple of district titles here lately, so I think Eastside will be in the mix again. So it should be fun as soon as we can figure out where all these transfers are going.
Yeah. I meant to ask you, speaking of that, Eastside and GHS played each other in the spring game. Have they ever done that before?
I would think so. It seems like I can't remember if they have, but I wouldn't be shocked, because, again, it's a spring game. Now, the difference was they played it at Newberry High School instead of Citizens Field. Citizens Field was doing some work, so that's why they played that game over at Newberry High School. But it gives Ian Scott something, give them a little momentum going into the summer, and we'll see how that affects them, for next season. Obviously, I think Eastside is maybe the better team. They certainly were this past year, but we'll see how much ground that Gainesville has gained, since then.
Yep. Mike, good stuff as always. Let everybody know how they can follow you on Twitter, read your stuff at Main Street Daily News.
All right, Twitter is at Ridaught, Ridaught. We have stuff up all the time at MainStreetDailyNews.com. Most recent thing I posted was our athlete of the week, Trenton's Presley Aikens, was named our athlete of the week after scoring the winning run in the state semifinals and driving in the winning run in their state championship game. But again, you can find all of our sports stuff at MainStreetDailyNews.com. We've got our all-area track and field teams coming up this month, along with our all-area softball and baseball teams. So even though the season's over, it'll still be pretty busy here the next few weeks. And I mentioned Gainesville softball. Again, they're going to be on the show tonight, so looking forward to that. That's from 7 to 8 p.m.
Appreciate your time, Mike. Have a good weekend,
All right,
and we'll
thanks,
talk to you
Shane.
soon, buddy. That's Mike Ridaught.
Sounds
Did
good,
a
man.
tremendous job covering high school sports in this area. Does a great job. Been doing it a long time, and if it wasn't for him, we wouldn't be updated periodically on what's going on. Comfort Temp Heating and Air is looking for an enthusiastic, motivated comfort specialist to join our team. $1,000 sign-on bonus after 90 days. Awesome benefits and opportunity to grow with the winning team. Apply today at ComfortTemp.com. Comfort Temp Heating and Air. Comfort is our business. Peace of mind is our promise. Don't forget, tomorrow, 3 o'clock. I don't know if the Gators are the first game or the second game. So if it's the second game starting at 3 o'clock, I doubt it, against the Nebraska Cornhuskers. Their pitcher's 9-0. I've talked to some people about him. Good pitcher, but probably just be a basic average guy in the SEC. So it's a short porch there in right field, supposedly in Stillwater. So hopefully the bats can get going. I think Liam is pitching for us. And then softball tonight, scheduled to start at 9:30 against Oklahoma State. Kenny Gajewski, who's their head coach, done a tremendous job. One of Tim Walton's best friends since like age 12. They played at OU together, and Kenny coached here a long, long time. So it should be a great game. I doubt it starts at 9:30 either. So John's question: Tennessee, Kentucky, A&M, Arkansas, and FSU have never won a College World Series. Who has the best chance to win their first? Ooh, out of those teams, I would lean either Tennessee or A&M. I don't know if Arkansas swings the bats well enough. I know they pitch it real well. I'm going to root against FSU to win. Kentucky, I don't think they've ever been there. So I'm going to go either the Vols or the Aggies out of your teams you had me choose from. So that should do it for today's program. We'll be here tomorrow with JC. We'll recap. Hopefully the Gators win tonight at OKC. Have a great day, folks. Take care.